خليل الله وموسى كليم الله ثم عيسى روح الله محمد حبيب الله.
طيب، بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. I start with the name of Allah, the one with no partner and no similar, the one with no length, no width, no depth, and no perimeter, the one who's not a volume and not in a place. And how could he be in a place when he exists before time and space? He speaks without sound, letter, nor language, not Arabic, Hebrew, nor Korean. He's not a light, he's not a spirit, he's not a soul, he has nothing in common with human beings. He's not in the direction of up, down, right, left, front, nor back. And whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different from that. And I ask him to raise the rank, honor, and prestige of our beloved Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the slave of Allah, his final messenger, and the best of God's creations. May Allah unite us with him in paradise and grant us a drink from his basin. May Allah increase us in strength, knowledge, humility, cooperation, and comprehension, and help us put our knowledge into practice and grant us the sincere intention. Allahumma ameen. The author, may Allah preserve him, mentions the section of uquq al-walidain wal birru al-walidain, severely harming the parents and the good treatment of the parents. Now, one may say, well, can we skip this chapter, or what's the relevance of this chapter? Because we don't have children, we're just trying to get to the marriage section. But oftentimes, the calamities that hits one's life, let alone their marriage, is because of their mistreatment of their parents, whether from the past that they did not repent from, or that they did not rectify, or when there's in-law squabbles. For example, although your wife's parents are not your parents, right? The parents of your wife are not your parents. You do not encourage your wife to do things that would make her fall into uquq, and vice versa. And so we are going to try to go over this within the context of marriage, inshallah ta'ala. And remember, the calamities that you put on your parents, right, the unrightful calamities, then the scholar said it's not far-fetched that those same calamities would befall upon you from your children. Why do I say unrightful calamities? Because if your parents are not happy that you're learning the knowledge of the religion, or that you're practicing your religion, their anger about that, or their sadness, or their tantrums has no weight whatsoever, mashallah. Or if your mother is not happy with the fact that your wife wears hijab, or that your husband goes to the masjid for all of his obligatory prayers, or as many as he can, then that really is not something that you should bat an eye towards. And if you have any questions, I want to remind you that when you ask a question, I'm not going to presume that you're asking about your case. So if you say, what if this, what if that, or I heard someone in this situation, what does the religion say? Don't be shy, and don't refrain from asking out of fear that you think you're exposing your circumstance. And anyone who thinks that they can get away with that, meaning they think, oh, I heard so-and-so ask this question, I think they're talking about their situation, and they spread it, they're now breaching an amana. There's an amana, there's a trust of the Muslims. One, they didn't expose their situation, they just asked a question. And two, this is a private session, it's not for everyone to see, mashallah. And of course, if you want to ask a question, so other people don't see, yani, after the class, and you're more than welcome to. I think this is clear. So among the sins of the body, so not specific to a particular organ, is uquq, which is a severe harming of the parents, even if it's a grandparent, so any parent ascending, even if the closer parent is existing. And of course, this is all in reference to Muslims. So we're going to explain and expound upon this, inshallah ta'ala. So for those who are converts to Islam, or those who have murtad parents, for example, so converts to Islam whose parents did not convert, or Muslims who have parents who have left the fold of Islam, then this does not apply to them. However, you should treat this chapter as if it applies to you, because how you conduct yourself with your Muslim or non-Muslim parents does have a significant impact on how they, or let me put it this way, how you conduct yourself towards your Muslim parents, that'll be the whole chapter. Towards your non-Muslim parents, how you treat them does have a big effect on the likelihood, or lack thereof, of them embracing Islam, or at least being respectful of your religious practices and not trying to sabotage the grandkids, i.e. your children, mashallah. So some of the Shafi'iyya said in defining it specifically is, it is what harms the parents, either one or both of them, in a way that is not normally considered easy, light, or insignificant, right? Not just they're rolling their eyes because your room's a mess, but they move on with their day. Something that's not easy for the parent to bear. So keep in mind this is subjective. So don't compare yourself with someone else's parents who are easygoing, for example. MashaAllah, Allah gave them a very easy way to partake in birrul walidain, good treatment of the parents. And your parents are a little more rigid or difficult to please. That's your test, mashallah. So they said that if one of the parents orders a child to do something permissible or to abandon it, and despite that the child opposes this order, and thus it causes depression or anxiety in the heart of the parent, it is obligatory to obey the parent. That's a rule. So in a halal matter, they tell you don't do it, and you refrain from listening, and then it causes them grief. Then you are obligated to follow their order. Now, as an expression of the extent to which one should strive to please his parents, the scholars said that, and again we're talking about Shafi'i scholars. A lot of people use the term scholars loosely, but in reality they're just relaying gibberish. We're talking about Shafi'i scholars. The scholars said that if one of the parents orders the child to eat food that is obtained through possibly forbidden means, we don't mean it's confirmed, it's definitive. They own a liquor store, all they sell is liquor, they don't even sell Gatorade or gum or chips or nothing, just liquor. And they take that money and then they go and buy food and then they tell you to eat it. That's not possibly haram means, this is definitively haram. What we say by possibly is, for example, a large portion of their money is halal, but some of their money is haram. And so it's mixed in the same bank account or in the same safe, if you have a safe in your house. And so the money's mixed, so you don't know which dollars was used to buy the groceries. So now it's possibly forbidden. So it's not known for certain. Then he can eat for the sake of making them happy in this context. And thereafter, he can vomit it up without them knowing. Also, they said that if the parents tell the child to divorce his wife because they do not like her, even though she does not do them any harm, she's not even harming the parents, she's respectful, she's nice, she doesn't talk bad about them, she doesn't hit them, that it is recommended for him to obey them in that, however, it is not obligatory. Now, how many times, whether it comes in the context of courting, I know many people don't like to use the word dating, so we're going to use the word courting, getting to know someone for the intention of marriage, people will take a religious rule and they apply it across the board and they harm themselves. And in actuality, it is not a case of birrul walidain. For example, many a times, you will see a man, okay, and he will get to know a woman, and once it starts getting serious, 6 months, 9 months, whatever the time frame is, 3 months, then he breaks up with her. He ends the relationship because he knows his mom wants someone from this town, or his mom would not accept this ethnic group, or from this type of family, or this or that. And mind you, he never spoke to his mom in the first place. Maybe she has a change of heart. Even though she's very firm in her ways, when she might say, and this happened many times, okay, let's see her. And they get won over in the first conversation. Or bring him over. We want to meet him. And he sweeps them off their feet. Yani, sincerely, it's not an act. Or the parent says, you know what? I see they really make you happy. I haven't seen you like this in a long time. You know, I'm going to work on myself. You know, I give you my blessing. Those conversations are not had. They waste the time, mashallah, of this person. And so that's why I'm saying, in the regards to this case, if the child was to be told by their spouse, divorce your wife, even though she didn't do anything bad, then it is recommended for him to obey them in that. Don't apply this across the board. Ask on a case-by-case basis. And the scholars did say this is not obligatory. Because when you are the head of the household, you have to understand you're going to have people come at you with a myriad of emotions. Your mother, your elderly father, your wife, your children, your relatives who are younger than you that look up to you. And you have to be willing to have those uncomfortable, confrontational conversations in which maybe you can bring them down to some logical understanding. And they say, you know what, I was doing the most. I overstepped my boundaries. My apologies. Don't jump to just appease whatever you hear or be hasty to do whatever you hear from your parents, when in actuality they're very likely to have a conversation with you, mashallah. However, in the case that she harms the parents by insulting them, or hitting them or the like, or she is known to be a major sinner, for example, she's an adulteress, despite being married, she sleeps around with other men. And if he does not divorce her, and thus they get severely distressed, I mean, what parent would want to have a daughter-in-law who sleeps around in the community? Then in this case, it is obligatory on him to divorce her. Be familiar with these terms of fiqh. It's obligatory on him to divorce her. It does not mean that the marriage is invalid. It does not mean that the divorce took place before him saying anything. Meaning, if he does not divorce her, the marriage is intact, the marriage is valid, but he is sinful. On the other hand, if one of his parents told him to marry a particular woman, this is another case, and he's not interested in marrying her, and look what Al-Bulqini says, this is from Al-Bulqini, and he clarifies his reason for them. So what does this section mean? Communicate with your parents. Sometimes they genuinely pick someone that they think would match with you, mashallah, but clarify why. You might know something about this woman that they don't know, or you may want someone of this type of character and they were not aware of that. So in this case, if it does not cause them any distress, then it is not obligatory on him to marry her merely because they have ordered him with that and they do not like for him to disobey them in that. However, if they are severely distressed because he does not marry her, then had it been said, again, these are expressions that show the gidra, the maqam of the parents, then had it been said that it is obligatory on him to marry her, there's no problem with that saying. There's no problem with going with that saying. That is, it could be said that it's obligatory on him to marry her because his disobeying of his parents has caused them distress or despair. If someone wants to marry a woman and they do not want him to marry her, so now Fulan wants to marry Zainab, and the parents are like, I don't want you to marry her, then if by marrying her they are severely distressed, it is not permissible for him to marry her. The marriage is valid, because we're not talking about invalidity here. The marriage is valid, but he would be sinful. And again, by the time you reach your early mid-20s, definitely in your 30s, you should know by that point who is acceptable in the eyes of your parents. So be an adult, be a real man. Don't talk to a woman for 3, 6, 9 months, 1 year, when you know that your parents probably would not accept, or you're doubtful about it. That should be the conversation you have in the first week, mashallah. How many times do men and women get heartbroken and then they go off the hinges because of the heartbreak and they start hating women, and the men are hating women more, and then the women hate the men more, and then it becomes gender wars. So be cognizant of the fact that there are feelings on the other side of this relationship, mashallah. And also, more good treatment, as some of the Shafi'iyya said, is that it is obligatory on the child to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive his Muslim parents at least once in a lifetime. Not your Christian parents who never embraced Islam. That would be belying or contradicting the religion. Allah does not forgive those who die as accountable non-Muslims. Doing more than that is a great worship. It is not a condition that this seeking repentance for the parents would be after their deaths. So if the child makes this repentance after the death of the parents, then the parents will benefit from this repentance done on their behalf. But if he says it in their lifetime, then that is sufficient. It is even the case that they get an immense reward from that. Then the hereafter they would be surprised. What made me get this reward in my mizan? I don't recall this deed. And the angel would say to them, this is from your child who made repentance for you after your death. MashaAllah. And among the good treatment of the parents is to visit them after their deaths, to visit the graveyards. MashaAllah. And mind you, it's not haram for a woman to go to the graveyard. For the woman to go to the graveyard of her parents or anyone that she loves, this is not prohibited. Just so you know. And above and beyond that, among the good treatment of the parents is after that they have died, to give good treatment to the one that the parents, meaning your mother, your father, who they loved. So visiting the friends of your parents, or the cousins of your parents, or other relatives of your parents that your parents really loved. MashaAllah. And being charitable to them, not just stopping by for 30 minutes and leaving. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said what means, surely among the best of good treatment is for the person to treat well the person that his father loved after his death. Of course it applies to the mother, because the mother has a higher daraja than the father. And this was narrated by Imam Muslim and others. Alright, that's the hadith, in case you guys want to put that in your notes, inshallah ta'ala. So if you guys can see the chat, then there it is, inshallah. And whoever wants to be someone who treats his Muslim parents well, then let them obey the parent in most permissible things or all of them. Meaning, as long as it's not haram. So it's considered good treatment of the parents to obey them in most of what's not haram or all of what's not haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the mighty and glorified, says in Surah Al-Isra, so this is the 17th chapter of Al-Quran, in the 23rd and 24th line. Your Lord has commanded that you do not worship anyone other than Him, the most important thing to do, which is abstaining from shirk, and that you would treat your parents well. And the order to treat the parents well coming after the order of worshiping Allah alone, what does this do, guys? This draws the attention to the high status of this deed. It could be that one of them would reach old age while they are living with you, or both. So do not say uff to them. So now the ayah is continuing. I don't say something that shows displeasure or disapproved. Uff, ugh, rolling your eyes. And do not forbid them from doing what you do not like. Say gentle, nice words to them and be merciful to them. Lower the wing of humility. Sometimes mom and dad, they really know how to burn you like no one else. Lower yourself. You may get it right 7 out of 10 times, mashallah. But inshallah, you'll get to a point where it's 10 out of 10 times. Inshallah, we'll get there, inshallah ta'ala. So lower your wing of humility and mercy to them and say, "Oh my Lord, have mercy upon them, for they were merciful to me by raising me when I was small." MashaAllah. Allah, Allah. Is it a mercy? Forget even during pregnancy. That's a whole other conversation. Just when you're born. Waking up every 2 hours, MashaAllah, to check if you're still breathing, to check if your diaper is soiled and if you have an itch, to make sure that you're not hungry. And you can't speak words, so they have to figure out your baby language, mashallah. Every hour worrying about you, spending money they don't have for daycare. They bought you some expensive, nice clothes, and they realize within 3 weeks you outgrow those clothes, mashallah. Constantly buying new clothes. SubhanAllah. Some people, they have Muslim parents, and they don't take advantage of the great reward they could get. This even applies to the people who are older. So let's say you're 60 years old and your mother's still alive. Still, that window's open. Treat your mother very well. And the people of knowledge said that it is religiously legitimate for the child to obey the parents in both what is permissible and what is makruh. So they said it's legitimate to listen to your parents with the halal and the makruh. However, it is not obligatory to obey them in everything that is permissible. So what's the rule? The rule is, if you want to write this down, it is obligatory to obey them whenever disobedience to them causes them distress, anxiety, it breaks their heart. Otherwise, it is not obligatory. That's why I said this is a subjective case. If I don't wash the dishes, for example, growing up, it would really distress my mom. This is me personally. Whereas other children, if they did not wash the dishes, their parents just brushed it off, load the dishwasher. So our cases are different. So I'd have to put in more work to avoid falling to haram than them. Or for example, as you know, let's say mom is out of town. She leaves town with her brother. And so dad is home. Oftentimes, dad is more easygoing than mom when it comes to cleaning the house, making your bed, etc. And so if dad said, "Hey, make your bed," and you didn't, and you don't make your bed until mom comes back to town, dad would not stress about it. So in this case, you don't fall into a haram. MashaAllah. So you have to see the situation of your parents. Therefore, imposing the order and the prohibition of the parent in reference to what does not harm the parent whatsoever, rather it is merely guidance and advice for the child, will not be the sin of uquq. However, complying with that is better. So for example, they're advising you, hey, don't stay out late. I don't want you to get sleepy and fall asleep on the wheel. But you stay out late. And they're not stressing out to begin with. So you come home after midnight. They told you to come home by 10 because they just concern about your energy levels when you're driving. And they just say, hey, did you have a good time? All right, next time just try to come back a little earlier. Okay, Dad. Okay, Mom, and you leave. In this case, you didn't fall into a sin because they're not showing any signs of anxiety. But of course, you should know how your parents would react to different cases, mashallah. So, in that vein, if the parent orders a child not to travel, and this travel is not necessary, then it is obligatory to abandon this travel if the parent gets distressed by that. Now, some people listening to this may feel restricted, but we are in a marriage class, so you may feel that way, but when you become a parent, then some of this will start to click a little more. Or even when you become a husband. Many husbands, whether it's from what they've seen online or in the news, feel very, very stressed out at the idea of their wives pumping gas. Because let's be frank, when it comes to human trafficking, it's not really men that are the target. Women oftentimes, at least in the metro Atlanta area, I don't know about the cities you are, you always see on the news they're being kidnapped at gas stations, at parks, mashallah. So the husband feels this sense of overprotectiveness for his wife. That's an overprotectiveness for your wife. Imagine your child, your legacy. Half of you, half of your dearly beloved. MashaAllah. And also, if the father forbids a child from going out of the house without his permission, it would not be permissible for the child to go out without permission if going out causes the father to collapse or have a nervous breakdown, for example. And some parents, MashaAllah, they don't want to stress you out. I'll use my father again as an example. My father is very easygoing when it comes to these things like going out, etc. He may give advice. When I come home late, for example, when I was in my undergrad years or what have you, he won't show anger, he won't show disappointment, but for example, the fact that he's staying up on the couch when he doesn't like to stay up on the couch late, 1 a.m., 1:30, that is a sign, that is an indication of his distress. He can't sleep until he has confirmation that I entered the door. So the merciful child say, you know what, I know my father or my mother likes to be in bed by 10:30. Anything past that, they're really pushing it. And they don't like to be in the living room. They like to be upstairs by that time. But they're here at 1:30 a.m. because I haven't entered the house yet. In this case, be mindful of your parents' heart, mashallah. So, not only if he feels this distress or this collapsing would it be haram, this going out would be a major sin. And the level of sin directly is corresponding to the level of harm that happens to the parent. So if the pubescent child goes out and that causes distress to the parents, then for every step of the child that is taken, this is a sin. MashaAllah. I was able to play in the neighborhood, so long as I knew which house I was going to. If I rode my bike all the way to the end of the neighborhood, as long as I'm in the neighborhood, they were fine. Whereas I had some friends growing up, they were not even allowed to pass the stop sign at the corner of their house. They're on the intersection in the neighborhood where two streets are perpendicular to each other. They were not even allowed to leave the stop sign. Some were not even allowed to leave the front yard. MashaAllah. And so the duress that you cause your parents is subjective here. However, if this is for a necessity, then it is permissible to go out, like learning the Fard al-Ain, or you have to go to school so you can make money, or you have to go to your job, mashallah, or you have to go buy groceries for your wife and your children. And if the mother or father requests from the child to do something permissible, like wash dishes, or clean the room, or heat up the food, or make some tea, or whatever is like that, but the child did not do it, then if the heart of the parents is distressed by this, then this is a sin on the child. And Al-Hakim and Tabarani have narrated, as well as Imam Al-Bayhaqi in his Shu'ab, as the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his acceptance of Allah is in the acceptance of, or the acceptance of Allah is in the acceptance of the parents, and the punishment of Allah is in the discontent of the parents. MashaAllah. You were the one who couldn't leave the driveway. MashaAllah. I was the one who I couldn't have MySpace. And there was no phones back then. Well, that is the hadith. MashaAllah. And you might feel like, man, this is just stressful. But some humble brothers, MashaAllah, they said the calamities I faced in my life is probably because of how I treated my parents. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said what means the punishment for the sins you do, they're reserved for the afterlife. Maybe in the barzakh, in the grave, but in the afterlife, generally speaking. Except for one sin. There's this one particular sin that if you do it, the punishment is advanced in this world. And that is uququl walidain. Uququl walidain. The severe harming of the parents. MashaAllah. And sometimes you might say, but it makes no sense. And you could say, objectively, it doesn't make sense. But that's the status of the parents. It doesn't have to make sense. As long as it's not haram. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. For example, I knew some people, when they were trying to learn the obligatory knowledge, there was not YouTube videos back in the day. There was no Asha'ira or Maturidiyya teaching any Aqidah series on YouTube, like in the 2010s, early 2010s or before that. Maybe if you were fortunate, you would hear about some Skype lesson that was going on. And so, when they were able to find someone in their town to teach them, it started at 9 p.m. And you know, if Maghrib comes in at 5:30, 6:30, as is the case here in the South, 9 p.m. feels very, very late, right? And the parents would get upset, but in this case, he's learning the obligatory knowledge, the Fardul Ayn. MashaAllah. Just a case-by-case basis. And again, we're going through this, and we're using this so you can understand the context, in the context of marriage. Because sometimes your parents-in-laws will be tripping, or your parents will be tripping. But now you are between a rock and a hard place. When your spouse gets angry and says, you know what, I'm done with my mom and dad, are you going to say, you know what, I'm done with them too? It's very easy to say they weren't your parents, mashallah. Or are you going to remind them that, hey, I know they're unjust, or I know that they're just, but we can't commit haram against them, and I don't want the calamity of uququl walidain to fall upon our marriage. Because keep this in mind, if your spouse is harming her parents or harming his parents, and a balat falls on him, how do you know you're not part of the balat? You've heard of some people who she got married and then her husband died. And then she got married and the next husband died. And she got married and the next husband had cancer. And finally she got a child from that husband before he got cancer. And then the child had leukemia. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And we're just talking about health here. How about if your marriage is not working out? Because the parent said, oh, I hope the pain you caused me, I hope you feel that in your marriage. Or I spent all this money and effort and energy in raising you, I hope you never have any barakah in your money. Oof. Doesn't matter how much we're fighting with our parents. If they start making dua against us in our face, hold on. Let's not bring out the big guns, right? Try to get them to reel that back in. Please, mom, please, dad, please take that back. A'udhu billah, please forgive me. Make dua for me instead. You better calm them down, because that dua is answered if it's a rightful dua. MashaAllah. Bahaz ibn Hakim narrates from his father, who narrated from his grandfather, may Allah accept their deeds, that he said, I said once upon a time, O Messenger of Allah, who should I treat best? Your mother. Then whom? Your mother. Then whom? Your mother. Then whom? Your father. Then whoever is closest in lineage, and then whoever is close to lineage after that, as narrated by Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi. And this is graded as Hassan by At-Tirmidhi. Rahimahullah wa rahmatullahi wa And this hadith and the hadith of Jannah being under your mother's foot, if you're Harari, are probably the only two hadith your mom has ever told you. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. May our parents teach us more hadith than just that. Allahumma ameen. It is understood from this hadith that the mother is given priority over the father in receiving good treatment. But the wise person will see a way if he can please them both. MashaAllah. And that's for the parents. And we'll come to this case later. But if you don't know how to apply the religious rules, then ask how you can apply them in your case. Someone who is trustworthy, someone who's not hasty, someone who's righteous, and someone who's honest. Wadih? Meaning, the wife who has the most rights to her is her husband. By virtue of the nikah contract taking place, her husband has priority over mom and dad. And if she doesn't, she falls into haram. So we spoke about the ayah in Surah Al-Isra that talks about do not commit shirk. And the second order is treat your parents well. MashaAllah. So this shows a high status of the parents. But when the Prophet ﷺ said what? The husband has more status than the parents. So what do you think is going to happen to you? What do you think the bala is when your husband's not being unjust? He's not being an ogre. He's not being aggressive. There's no shadid behavior going on whatsoever. And you don't listen to what he says. What's the punishment of that? We're not even talking about him versus your parents. But let's bring it together. Mama and Baba want this. Husband wants that. And you prioritize Mama and Baba. And then you wonder why your marriage doesn't work out. He was toxic anyways. He was controlling. He always told me what to do. MashaAllah. Our parents told us what to do our whole lives. And we would never call our parents toxic. MashaAllah. Because they had the right to do so. But you have to condition yourself to fall in line with what the Rasul ﷺ came with. Al-Mustafa, wallahi billahi, he would not share something with us. And it is wrong. It is harmful. That would not happen. Because what he revealed to us was the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Quran. As for his hadith, where he said that was not Quran, this is not whimsical words. In the Quran it says that the Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't just speak whimsically. What he says is inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's khair, there's barakah in that. And what is the antithesis? What is the antonym to barakah? You may call it la'na. You may call it a calamity. You can call it whatever you want. But the person is damned when they go against the grain of the blessed words of Al-Mustafa ﷺ. That's why his name is Ra'uf Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the name Ra'uf Rahim. It's like mercy upon mercy, the compassionate and merciful one. Because he had mercy on us to give us these keys. Because if I didn't know this knowledge, maybe I would have harmed my parents and not even know that's why nothing else is working around in my life. Nothing's working. Same for you. Or if it wasn't for him telling us about not just the benefit of salah or the benefit of fasting, but the arkan and the shurut, I mean the integrals and the conditions, the invalidators, and the sunnahs that are the icing on the cake, so to speak, maybe we would not have noticed ways, we would not have figured out ways to get blessings into our life, because these things are sababs for blessings. So the reason why Al-Mustafa ﷺ mentioned the father only once in that hadith, mentioned the mother thrice, is because the mother's great care and her compassion towards the child, as well as the hardship that she bears while pregnant, and the labor pains that she faces, and the inability to sleep while we're snoring and we're on our ninth dream, and her giving birth, and breastfeeding, which is painful. Sometimes the baby can't latch. Even if the baby is latching, it's painful. MashaAllah. And staying up at night, and making sure that all the items in the baby registry, they're safe, they have good ratings, they're good quality, that they're going to last for the second baby and third baby. Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu an saw a man carrying his mother on his back while making tawaf around the Kaaba. I didn't see that in Medina, mashallah. That would have been nice to see. The man said, Ya ibn Umar, do you think I paid her back for what she deserves? Meaning for all the work she's done for me as a mom? He said, you did not even pay her back one labor pain, one contraction. However, you did something good, and for a little bit of goodness, Allah will give you a significantly generous reward. As for the hadith, paradise is under the feet of the mothers. MashaAllah. What it means is that paradise is reached by treating the mother well. And of course, this is a weak hadith. This is because Al-Hafiz Al-Murtada Al-Zabidi said the chain of narration for the hadith is weak because in it is someone or some people who are unknown. And as you know, it is permissible in the science of hadith. It is permissible to relay a weak hadith if it encourages good manners. Weak does not mean it's a lie. That's not what it means. MashaAllah. Before we continue with what Al-Bulqini said, let me see what it said here. I know someone whose parent would do things like start yelling if he told them to stop backbiting, slandering someone while in their presence, or over other random things. What should he do? Told them to stop backbiting. MashaAllah. So when it comes to bidding the good and forbidding the evil, in this context of the parents, don't correct them in front of people if you know that they will get riled up and their ego will be bruised. Because the goal is what? The goal is for them to change their bad behavior. And if their reaction leads them to more haram, for them to say, oh yeah, I'm just speaking the truth, and they keep saying more and more and more and more, then you stop so you don't push them towards more haram. But also we take the advice of Al-Bulqini, which is what? Lower yourself. Sometimes before you advise someone, although it may burn because you know, man, this person, they really did a number on X, Y, and Z. They really messed up. But you compliment them, you let them know how much you appreciate them. You say, you know, I really like how you always told me these values and these values and these values. MashaAllah, barakallahu fikum. And I don't know how you did it. Working 2 jobs, X, Y, Z, while raising us with a good attitude. And you do so much for us, and I just want you to have the best mama, or I want you to have the best baba. But you know, there's just one thing that makes me sad. You know, just whenever you talk about people, I know they may bother you, I know they may get on your nerves, but you know, you're better than that. That's not befitting of you. I don't want all your good to be overshadowed with evil on Yawm al-Qiyamah. I just want goodness for you, and I look at you like a role model. Really, speak from the heart. If that's how you feel about your parents, just let them know that they're not being attacked. Let them know, and you can do this for your spouse too. Let them know that, by the way, when I'm giving you this feedback, it does not mean that you now have no goodness in you, or I don't appreciate you, or whatever you did is now erased. Because sometimes we get critiqued, we get bruised. We get bruised. We feel like, okay, but am I worthless then? Is nothing that I do matters? You know, you never talk to me when I do something right. You only seem to tell me when I'm doing something wrong. So lower yourself, because the one who is committing major sins is in an emergency situation. You can see it like a hostage situation. Iblis has a gun to their head, or they are in a burning building. This is an emergency situation. Whether you want to look at it like a burning building, or whether you want to look at it as a hostage negotiation. Your goal is to get them out by any means necessary. If it means lowering yourself, being humble, if it means taking off your vest, leaving your walkie-talkie in the comparison to the hostage negotiation. If that's what it takes, you do it. But if you're gonna have the attitude of, hey, well, I warned you, sayonara, then guess what? The emergency situation, what's the end goal of that? They get harmed. And so it makes you wonder, how sincere were you in your pursuit into saving them in the first place? Because you had the attitude of, let them burn. They're mukallaf, they're accountable, because some people, they take the religion in far too much of a black and white case, and they have no tazkiyah, they have no spirituality, they have no softness of the heart. Likewise with the wife, likewise with the husband. This thing that you're complaining to them about, do you want it to change or do you want it to not change? Okay. Are you that arrogant to think that you're yelling, you're name calling, you comparing them to your exes, you comparing them to the other wives and husbands in the community, that's not working? Okay, let's prove it hasn't worked for 5-10 years. Are you too cool? Are you too good to maybe change your approach? Are you too perfect to say, is it my delivery? Because, okay, I would like my wife to do a little bit more of this. I would like my husband to be a little more helpful, or to just hear my emotions a little more and my complaints a little more and be more present. But they're not listening, and that's not the person I married. This is where people deviate and start talking to their girlfriends or the homies. Bring it back here before you deviate to your girlfriends or to the homies and say, what is it about my delivery that is impalpable? If someone spoke to me like that, what would my reaction be? What would most people's reaction be? MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Is that clear? I hope that is clear, MashaAllah. Are there any questions before we continue? There's some cases I will skip, but if you fall into these cases, like the case of, can you take your parents to court? Can you call the police on your parents? May Allah, it doesn't matter if our parents stabbed us in Ethiopia, man. If you're from Ethiopia, you don't call police on your parents. That's a no-no. You better find some gauze and you better find some band-aids and start wrapping that up. You don't call police on your parents, mashallah. But we're gonna skip that case, mashallah. We're going to talk about one of the children of the companions, mashallah. He came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam complaining about his father in reference to the loss of money. That is, he is saying that my father squanders or wastes my money. And some husbands, I know a lot of husbands, they give credit cards or debit cards, or they give monthly stipends to their parents, whether their parents need it or not, mashallah. And this can affect the marriage, right? This can affect the marriage, so it's a case-by-case basis. So this is a very common case. So he was in the presence of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he did not consider any of that to be uquq, and he did not forbid the child from the aforementioned complaint. Because some parents, waliyadu billah, because they did not learn, or they learned but they believe that the law is above them, or they only learned about rights of the parents, they never learned rights of the children. Ooh, that's something that burns a lot of parents to hear. I'll say that again. We always hear about rights of the parents, but we don't hear about the rights of the children. This is part of the obligatory knowledge. If you're going to have children, you are obligated to know how to conduct yourself with your children. Whether they are 5 years old, 15 years old, married, whether they have kids. And so, by virtue of you being a parent, this does not make you above the law. When you are a parent, the advice or the critique or the suggestion from your child is not crossing the line. This is why, for example, for the one who asked the question, you have to look at the whole case. For example, you asked your question. But for example, there's far more cases. There's a due process here to see what's the most effective way. Whether it be with this parent that you mentioned in the chat, or whether it be with your spouse. Do they learn the knowledge? Are they miserable in their own marriage? Because when people are miserable in their own marriage, even parents, they will project that onto you. Did their parents just die? And so they feel so guilty about the fact that they did not put in as much effort, or they can't do any more good deeds for their parents, or they can't say oath for all the harm they've done. Now they want to project onto you and to show onto you what it means to value your parents. They don't realize what they're doing. There's many things to take into consideration, mashallah. And this all comes with knowledge, and this comes with wisdom, and this comes with consulting, mashallah. As for the child forbidding the parent from doing something the parent wants to do, then had it been forbidden to do that with someone other than the parent, right? Then if this thing is forbidden, for someone else to do, then it would be haram when doing it with the parent, right? For example, you're forbidding the child from what you're forbidding the parent from doing what they want to do, like drink alcohol. For other than the parent, is drinking alcohol haram? Yes. Therefore, it would be a major sin when doing it with the parent. That is, this child is stopping the parent from doing what the parent wants to do, and this is a haram thing. Yani drinking alcohol or buying lottery tickets or drinking NyQuil. I don't know, people love drinking NyQuil to go to sleep, 10% alcohol volume, mashallah. If it's haram to stop someone else from doing that, meaning you can't stop someone else from fulfilling something that is their right, then moreover, stopping your parents from doing that is a major sin. For example, can you stop someone else in the Muslim community from getting married? No. So trying to stop or prevent your father or your mother to remarry, this is a major sin. To be a major sin on the child, it would have to harm the parents. MashaAllah. Therefore, it is not a major sin if the child took some change or something of small value from one of his parents, like going in their pocket and taking out a $5 bill. Even though had he taken that from someone other than a parent in a way that is not religiously recognized, it would be a major sin. If I can take a $5 bill from my dad's pocket, I can't take it from your pockets though. Because this is something that the parent usually would be happy for. Yes, 5, take 20. MashaAllah. If you take $1 from your friend's wallet, it doesn't matter if they're a doctor. They're going to be like, so you stole from me? But we're friends. It doesn't work like that. MashaAllah. So this is due to the superior compassion of the parent. They wouldn't see it as harm. So this is a case where Al-Bulqini is saying that would be a major sin with someone else. It wouldn't be a major sin here if it does not harm the parent, because how compassionate the parent is towards a child. However, if he took $10,000 or $1,000 or anything that is considered a lot of money in a way that the parent was harmed, that would be a major sin, and this is why we mentioned in the chapters of the witnesses. Be mindful that a lot of people don't repent properly. If you stole from your from your parent, and you feel bad about it, you still have to pay them back. That major sin stays. That bala is raining on you. That bala is raining on you. MashaAllah. Because if stealing $1,000 from a stranger is haram, money that's not light money, it's not an easy matter, then imagine the case in regards to doing that to your parents. MashaAllah. And we spoke about the obligatory support of the poor parents. However, if those parents have what suffices them, it is not obligatory to support them. So talk to your spouse about this. Because some children, when I say children, they're grown children, they're married. They, maybe it's to say thank you to their parents. They want to give them $300, $500 a month. And their parents are actually well off, but it's a thank you. But meanwhile, the other spouse is saying, hey, I don't know, we're trying to save up, get a house, maybe replace the old car. We don't have any furniture, we don't have any pots and pans. Maybe now's not the time to give our parents, either set of them, $500 a month, $1,000 a month. So work it out with your spouse. Is this a case of an obligation or not? If it's not an obligation, then see, is it something that you guys can bear? And remember that they have family too. Because a lot of husbands, they don't plan for the future. They're saying, well, I can do $500 now. But then guess what happens when something happens to her side of the family? And they're good Muslims, mashallah. But what? Now you're so used to giving your side $500, you don't even have $100 to give this side. MashaAllah. You planned for the now, you didn't plan for the future. And what she's gonna feel like, you only care about your family, not my family. And what does that look like to the children? Dad only cares about his family, not mom's side of the family. And for you husbands who are a little miskeen and naive, just know, your children are probably gonna like their cousins and their aunts and uncles from mom's side. So don't build a case against yourself and always help out your family while you neglect that side, mashallah. Be fair, be a good planner, seek advice. MashaAllah. In case a person is obligated to support his Muslim parent and does not while able, this is a major sin, but it's not a debt. So it's not like you owe your parents. You don't have to do back pay. They are not entitled to what they call back support. right? Back support is not a thing. Child support is not a thing. That's all haram money. May Allah protect us from such cases falling into our life. Likewise, for the child, the one who doesn't support his child while obligated and able, it's a major sin, but it doesn't become a debt. So if you're a deadbeat father, and you don't support your children, or you're a deadbeat mother because you have a child that goes through your lineage because, for example, the child is illegitimate, this does not become a debt. This is contrary to the non-Muslim practice where they make a person pay back child support. Why doesn't it become a debt? Because a person is not obligated to make his parents or children own the support he gives them. He's not obligated to make them own it, to put it in their ownership. So he can give them clothes and say, use this, but it's not for you to keep. Right? He's not obligated to make them own it, because, for example, when the child outgrows it, or their parents pass away, now you have to ask, whose does it belong to? Because if I outgrow my clothes, I still own my clothes. But for my child, if he outgrows it, I can't sell it, for example, if he bought his clothes. But if I give him clothes to borrow, then I have the right to sell it. Because had it been his clothes, I don't have the right to give it away. And how many parents, right, and you'll know this when you have babies, they say, I'm done with my 1 month to 3 month old clothes or my 6 month clothes, so I'll give it to you for your baby. There's nothing wrong with, secondhand clothes. Parents do it because baby clothes is very expensive. But would you be able to give away clothes if it was not yours? No. So in this case, the parent is not obligated to put in the possession, meaning of ownership, to his parents or to his children. This is different from the case of the wife. The food has to be in her ownership, the clothing has to be in her ownership, and so that would be a debt, but we'll talk about that later, inshallah ta'ala. Because if he doesn't support his wife, and she doesn't excuse him from it, then it becomes a debt because he's obligated to make his wife own the support that he must give her, except for some cases like the house. He does not have to put the house under her name, or the lease under her name, etc. He does not have to make her a homeowner. However, it is obligatory, as we said, to put the food and clothing into her possession so that she owns it. Nevertheless, one should support his parents or spend on them out of goodness. And in the context of marriage, if you have the money, or if you can shift around your budget to where you spend a little bit less on yourself and you buy nice gifts once in a while, a cake on Eid, a purse for your mother-in-law, a watch for your father-in-law, take care of your in-laws too, whether you feel like they deserve it or not. It is recommended for the person to give the parents what they love. MashaAllah. And some parents love different things. My dad is happy with crossword puzzles. My mom likes purses and desserts. So crossword puzzle, $3. Dessert starting at $30. It's subjective. You don't look at the number, you look at the effect and the smile on the face, mashallah. And by the way, in case you did not know, the Prophet ﷺ, what did he promise us? When he makes a promise, that's not going to break. That's not going to break. MashaAllah. Allah is going to fulfill these hadiths to come into manifestation. The one who maintains family ties, the obligatory family ties, with those who they love and those who they don't love from their family, Allah expands their rizq. Rizq could be life, how long you live, quality of life, your health, your wealth, monetary rizq, your children, quality children, not just you have 3 little rascals, 3 obedient children who love Allah, who love Al-Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam, mashallah. And so, what's past maintaining ties? Facilitating and building a culture in your house to buy gifts for your mother, your father, your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, aunts when you visit them, uncles when you visit them. When guests come, you treat them well, you host them well. You don't get the great value milk for them, but for yourself, you always drink the Mayfield milk. You give them what you would consume. You treat them as if they are you. MashaAllah. That is love, and people can see that. And even if they don't appreciate it, you're not doing it for them. It was never about them. It was about the sake of Allah. It was never about them. What is considered the obligatory maintaining of ties with relatives doesn't mean you have to talk to them every week. doesn't mean you have to divulge your secrets to them and be BFFs. No. So we'll talk about that another time if someone is interested in that. So not only does this affect your rizq, this would be a reason for his status to be increased. So some of you listening in, you have Muslim children who are pubescent, so it's probably a good idea you have them listening to this lesson so they can obey Allah. Because I cannot tell you how many times the parents, they come crying, tears of blood, save my son, talk to my daughter. The man is 25 years old, she's 35, what can I say? Who am I to her? I didn't raise her. I wasn't the cousin that was around her, I wasn't the uncle that was around her. How can I undo 30 years of the nonsense that you nourished? You fed into this for 30 years. Not just because you want them to obey you, should you work on your children early. Because you love them to be good Muslims. You want your son to be a salih wa abid. One of my shaykhs relayed that a scholar was asked, for example, just to give you some perspective here, and we'll end with this inshallah ta'ala. Is it considered bad manners to ask your mother for a glass of water? Let alone doing your laundry. Let alone asking her to make your favorite meal. Let alone. I don't even know what cases you guys have experienced for yourselves or have seen in others. Just when I think I've seen it all, I always get shocked, mashallah. So the scholar said, yes, even asking your mother for a glass of water, yes. Now sometimes, and this is the case with my mother, if I say no, I'll serve my own plate, she's almost like she gets offended. She feels happy making my plate, even when I visit her years later. I don't even live with her anymore, mashallah. So don't ask, but if you see something that makes your parent really happy, then do that, mashallah. On the other hand, my dad is different. Growing up, he was very, very happy if I said, hey, can you help me change my oil or change my spark plug? He would hop up as if like as if I told him I have a Mercedes for him outside, fully paid for him. He would hop up and just like with enthusiasm, he would like that. MashaAllah. So parents are different, but you should not get used to asking them to do things for you. Do you want to hear a good way to get reward? Ask them to do things with you. Dad, you want to come with me to the store so we can go get this thing done? Mom, would you like me to help you serving the family? Mom, can you just relax? You already cooked. Can I make the table and serve the family? Mom, can I help you grocery shop, for example? Doing things with your parents, mashallah, or for your parents. Mashallah. My mother, she loves, I don't know why she always comes to me for it, because I'm not good at it, but she always asks me to hang up frames for her in the house, and she likes it, so it's an easy way to get rewarded, mashallah. Our Shaykh, Abdullah al-Harari, rahimahullah, rahmatun wasi'ah, when he entered the house of his mother, who was amongst the awliya, he would not sit down until she granted him permission. MashaAllah, he would just stand. So, I would like to digress with the beneficial account narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, wherein he reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, I'll say that for next week, inshallah ta'ala. Allahumma musta'an. May Allah help us on our trajectory, on our path to being good to our parents. It's not easy for many, but nothing good comes easy. I like wealth, I like health. I want to have a good, peaceful life with a lot of blessings and mercy and compassion manifesting in all of my interactions. So seek the means that Ra'uf al-Rahim shared with us, i.e. the Prophet ﷺ. He had mercy on us and he gave us many avenues, like making dua, making tawassul, supplicating in the masjid, being good to your parents, asking the pious people or the people of knowledge or the tribe to make dua for you. He gave us shortcuts for over 23 years on how to have our means or our requests answered. He gave us these means. And so what better means for rizq? I mean, I think everyone here, they don't want to be, poor with health, wealth, family, etc. So seek these means. And if you don't have Muslim parents, because for example you're a convert, or they passed away and you feel like you have less options, all you can do is make dua, you can't spend time with them anymore, then make sure you embody that, and make sure you instill that within your children. Because if your children love mom and dad and you're not toxic, you're not a gaslighter, you don't just tell them when they're wrong, you ask them, how am I doing as a mom? How am I doing as a dad? And you really generate that reverence and respect and grandiosity for the status known as parenthood in the eyes of your children. Then know that your dua as a parent is answered. If, for example, if you're a poor mom or a poor father, and you say, Ya Allah, grant my child wealth, and grant my child halal wealth, and grant him wealth with generosity, and make him honest in his dealings, or make her honest in her dealings. If that child who you raised to love and respect parents, they become wealthy, remember the dua of the parent is answered. It's maqbool. You think they're going to forget about mama and baba? No. They definitely don't forget about mama. They might give dad a tie on Eid, mashallah, or a drill, or a barbecue. The men, we get things to help around the house, and the women, they get things to enjoy life, mashallah. That's the way the cookie comes. Wallahu musta'an. Wa an with tahleen and salah ala nabi. And if there's questions, you guys can unmute or put in the chat.